The Fire Store, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision the Fire Store makes as a company is about its customers. As the holiday season has quickly approached, explore a wide selection of unique and practical gifts at the Fire Store's Gift Center. Find the perfect presents for firefighters, EMTs, and first responders today. The Fire Store's goal is to get you the gear you need when you need it at prices you can afford. Visit thefirestore.com for everything but the truck and shop its family of brands including Streamlight, MSA, Lion, Fleer, and more.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, those toxins lead to cancer. Protect yourself with MagneGrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes. To get free grant assistance, visit MagneGrip.com.
Good evening and welcome to Scenes of Violence with Steve Hamilton. Right before Christmas, so Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy holidays. Thank you for tuning in this evening. Tonight's guest is a friend of the show, not a stranger by any means. Dave McGlynn, Chief Dave McGlynn, because it's official. It's Chief now, right? It's not.
No, it's not official yet. It's not official
yet.
Yet.
It's interim Chief.
Right. Yeah. Interim. Yeah.
So it's not assistant. You're higher than me.
In the current status, yeah, I'm higher than assistant, but there's no guarantee. I may end up putting 3 back on. So.
You're always a chief in my book.
Oh, thanks. You too, buddy.
So there are those who do not know the great Dave McGlynn. They should be few, but there's a rare chance that somebody tuning in this evening does not know the great Dave McGlynn. Could be because they've lived under a rock for the last 5 years. I don't know. That being said, please introduce yourself a little bit. Let people know who is Dave McGlynn.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm okay with not a lot of people knowing. So it's funny. The more that we do this stuff, and the more that we reach people, the more enemies you get. So I like to try to keep my circle small if I can. So I'm Dave McGlynn. I grew up in New Jersey. I grew up right outside Staten Island. I have to say that to people because people never know the town I grew up in is Woodbridge Township. So it's nearby Rahway, New Jersey, which is actually where I was born, and then grew up in the Island section of Woodbridge Township, which is right outside Staten Island. Spent almost 8 years in the fire service there, and then I got hired with the federal government. Moved up to Maine, working for a naval air station. That was a completely different element, something that I wasn't normally used to as far as like aircraft firefighting, just a different type of skill set. So was up there to base Bract. I ended up down in Pennsylvania. Worked my way up into getting promoted. I made supervisory captain in 2013, I think. Did that for a little bit, and then I ended up at West Point, where I got the training chief job, which I didn't think I would get. And I always tell everybody that, like, I was very transparent. My bad, I got a bad shoulder. It's the nature of the beast of the job. I was very transparent in my interview, so I didn't think I would get the job. And then lo and behold, they ended up offering me the job. So I got it. Here's my son. I got 2 kids, Angela and Michael. Michael the Mick, that's him right there. Now he's hiding out because I called him out. And I'm married to a Brooklyn-born Puerto Rican, Chrissy. Did the whole West Point thing. Ended up having an opportunity to transfer down to Letterkenny, which is back in Pennsylvania. I got an assistant chief job there. Still doing training. I promoted as the ops chief. I didn't want to let go of training. Hammy, you know me. I love training, so it was hard for me to let go of it because I wasn't done. So even though I took on the rank of being the ops chief, I did not relinquish training. I convinced the fire chief to let me dual hat it for no extra pay, just because I was that much of a control freak over the training program. Fire chief had left, and for the past few months, I've been the interim chief, and I don't know if or who is going to permanently get that position. My hope is that I would have an opportunity, but who knows? Nonetheless, I don't have any qualms with it because I enjoy still doing training. So if it didn't work out, I still get to go back and still do that thing that I love that I'm not finished with yet. Just finished writing my first book called The Training Officer, Do You Have What It Takes? Hammy's in it. He did a contribution in chapter 7, so I appreciate that. Had, counting Hammy, I had 10 good contributors, 10 great, amazing instructors, authors, people that go all around the country teaching and spreading their message and doing this type of stuff on a podcast and whatnot, contribute to it. I've been blessed. Here he is. I've been blessed to teach at FDIC and write for fire engineering, written for fire engineering consistently since 2016 or 15, maybe 15. I don't remember. And I've been teaching with FDIC Fire Department Instructors Conference since I got accepted in 2017. Been on the board, or on the executive board or advisory board with them now, me and you both, Hammy. It's surreal. I'm very passionate about training. Anybody knows me knows I'm very passionate about training. It does not mean that I'm an SME for training. I'm not. I just love it. I think that, as the saying goes, you can never train enough for a job that'll kill you. That's just how it is, man. I mean, it's just, we should always be preparing for the worst. Training, I think, is putting 100% effort into something that you might only have to do 10% of the time. That's it. That's me. Oh, and I have my own podcast called The Training Officer on Fire Engineering.
I was about to say, you got a podcast too. You should probably throw that out.
Right. Yeah, I left that part out.
Yeah, our relationship with each other isn't a secret. What would you say? 2014?
Yeah, 14, 15, around there. We started to communicate.
The training network.
Yeah. Well, we got that officially kicked off in 17. I'm taking that away, but so just for the audience, so where Hammy's going with this is something that we had worked on, we discussed for a while, and Hammy had this idea about like how we need to kind of get training officers to talk and communicate to one another, and then we went through the bureaucracy of that. And we got it kicked off and presented.
It was totally fine.
Right. We got it kicked off and presented to the Army around 2017, and then we spent 2 years straight working on a regulation rewrite for training requirements for firefighters, and it was no easy thing. It was a challenge on a daily basis, but we made it through, and I'm proud of that. So. Yeah, we've worked, even with you being in South Carolina and me for a lot of times at the time being up in New York and then still in Pennsylvania. We got closer because we were working so hard on this one product to make sure that it was done right for the future, for our thing. So,
well, I might be dating myself. I live by these things. Sheriff's notebook. When you call it a sheriff's notebook, you're dating yourself. I found one the other day, which was my notebook that I used when I started taking notes of our first phone call.
Nice.
When we were talking about stuff, you, me, and
John Ryan.
Yep. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Telling since you're here this evening. I think training is a huge component to the show, obviously, for things that you've articulated, and us being affiliated with FDIC for a long time now. Everything starts with training. I believe everything starts with training. Policy changes starts with training. New computer platforms start with training. New phone systems, new tactics, new trucks, new equipment, new concept, everything. If you want to change an SOP, it should start with training. That's what's going to tell you whether it's going to work or it's not going to work. And there's been a very consistent common theme with not just scenes of violence, which kind of doesn't get the fanfare. Active shooter has pretty much drowned out everything else in related to violent scene response. But the biggest commonality between all that is training. We don't train with the cops enough. The cops don't train with us enough. We don't train with the EMS, vice versa, back and forth and back and forth. What is your take on where we are now versus where we were, say, 10 years ago when people were, with megaphones, bullphones, like screaming and yelling, we must train together? Where do you think we are now?
Well, that's a great question. And so where we are now is, I'll say, in all technicality, not a political answer, we're a 180 from where we were 10 years ago. And that's not an insult to people that were doing this 10 years ago. The fire service, and to quote you, I use it often, is it ebbs and flows. It's an ever evolving service and business that we're in. And with that, things have changed. We have to recognize the need for change. We have to recognize the need for improvement. We have to expose those gaps. We have to find a way to implement and fill those gaps. I think we've recognized, I don't want to say recognized, I think we've accepted the importance and value of training more now than we ever have in the past. I think that we've done an amazing job of being more accepting to what we're going to do in the future. I'm excited to see what the next 10 years are going to look like, how much we're going to grow compared to what we've grown over the past 10 years. I think we're doing a great job. I think we finally accepted the reality of active shooter, right? We've accepted that this is a real thing. We've accepted that we weren't prepared. Most of us have accepted. There's still some work to do in convincing people that this is a priority focus. However, nonetheless, we've accepted that these things are real and that we're not prepared. And how do we get prepared? Well, training. You can't replicate this. My biggest fan over here. You can't replicate that incident, that type of incident, because, people would get hurt. So you have to do it through training, right? So I think we've done an amazing job of creating workshops, workforces. I think that we've done an amazing job of communicating better through things like this, through channels like the internet and the podcast. I think that resources and information is more accessible, and sharing information than it ever was 10 and plus 20 years ago. So it's only going to grow. I think that the biggest hurdle, what's stumping me right now isn't to answer the question. It's just become real to me. It took us 10 years to accept that we weren't training enough. And we've always known training was important. But like, if you think about it, like just like the premise of your show, right? This shit's been going on forever. I always tell everybody, like before active shooter was the cool thing, Hamilton was talking about it. And it's like, you were talking about it for more than 10 years. But the point is like, it took us 10 years where like people started to like, now it's a popular thing. Now it's a buzzword. And I don't mean to downplay it because it's an important thing, but you know how I feel about that when I see some of these fugazis coming out of the woodwork and all of a sudden they're an SME on active shooter. But I digress. But, it's just, I feel like we have leaps and bounds over the past 10 years. And the shame of it is that it took us 10 goddamn years to realize that this is an important thing. But I am excited about what the next 10 years is going to bring us, because we're finally talking about it. We're finally recognizing that we're ill prepared and we need to do better.
We may have to add like a definition section at the end. Yeah, fugazi. Like you're taking me back. I hear my grandmother.
Buy the book. It's in the book. The definition's in the book.
My grandmother's in the kitchen somewhere right now, like yelling at me, calling me a fugazi. Get out of the kitchen. I like it. I caution to say this because I accept the consequences, I guess, or I acknowledge the consequences. I think we overtrain certain aspects of our violent scene response, very particularly active shooter. I mean, we can put together a multi-jurisdictional, multi-agency exercise and over-focus or hyper-focus on tourniquet application, patient removal, lifts, drags, carries, contact time, transport, that kind of, and transport, Paquito. We over-focus on those things, right? We pay attention with a great amount of intensity to the first 2 hours of an event, the interaction between law enforcement, fire, EMS. And I get it. You know, the famous statement, as the first line goes, so goes the fire. Or your first 15 minutes dictates the next 2 hours. That's important. Where I think we're missing a vital component is the next 2 days to 2 weeks to 2 months. That's where I feel like we're ill prepared, not just as a fire service, but as a community. Because when you look at some of these events, yeah, the impact is mythic, but there's a lasting impact that you'll never overcome. I mean, you are never going to be Columbine pre-1999. Not going to happen. That's your namesake.
Yeah.
And
there's nothing I can disagree on all that. You're 1,000% right. One thing that I don't want to say frustrates me, just like for like where you and I work, like I hate that. So I'm a big advocate on repetition training because repetition builds perfection, right? However, when we do the same scenario, like because you've really been a student on this whole thing and have a lot of experience in it on both sides of the coin. But like when we do train on this, we train for like the same old type of the situation. We never change it up to an extent. And like, that's where we've hurt ourselves, like in firefighting training, right? So like if we do structural drills and we do the same building that we've always done the structural drill in, and the same, way we enter the building when we stretch the hose line, and the same way we search the hallway, to conduct a search. Then while they master those skills, they're not ready for any other monkey wrench that's thrown into it. Now, on the flip side of that, I also hate when the world is crashing down when they do these culminating training events, because it's like, oh, well, there was an active shooter here, but then this guy threw a grenade and an earthquake went off. Like, let's stop. Okay. Like we need to focus on one thing at a time. So if we did an active shooter and it was in a school setting and it was a single shooter and he came in, through an open doorway or whatever, we practice that, right? We mitigate that. We practice that. We crawl, walk, run it. We talk about it. We walk through some of those scenarios. Then we execute a drill, and then we do an after action, see what's what. The next time we throw it in there, we do it in a theater environment or at a major event. Change it up. Don't always do the same thing either. And that's the thing, is like, you don't always have to add another shooter either. Like, that can happen, all day long it can happen. But statistically, it's been single shooters. So that's another thing we fail in when we do training is like, so you got the one shooter. Well, this guy was hiding in a closet, and then you got him, and it's like, well, this guy zip line down, and he like, get out of here, bro. This isn't Die Hard. Like nobody zipped in,
Wait, Die Hard is a Christmas movie.
It is a Christmas movie. I agree, 100%.
Totally a Christmas movie.
I'm with you there.
So is Lethal Weapon. Totally a Christmas movie.
Right.
Sorry,
Yeah.
I didn't mean to digress.
No. I appreciate that sidebar because I agree with that. No, but like that's all. That's just I'm listening to what you're saying. And I totally agree, and that's just like one of the things. Like what we're doing is we're doing good in training, but then we're not explaining to people like one of the fails that we have is like if somebody does one, for lack of a better term, like you and I, we know what we're talking about when we say this. So like we do RTF training, Rescue Task Force training, right? Well, how you get there to start one is you explain what RTF means and what that defines. And you educate your police force because you're working with them on what that defines, because some of the police force, and it's not knocking them, it's right for them to believe this. Their thought process is that you're TAC medics. And most fire departments that are setting up an RTF are not TAC medics. They're rescue task force. They're going in to do triage, load, throw tourniquets and get people out. Set up a CCP, casualty collection point, and get these people into that safe space and whatever and everything like that. And typically they're deployed when it's warm or cold, right? TAC medics are hot. They're coming in when the cops are going direct to threat. That's not what an RTF is. And so you got to educate that piece. And I think that's just stuff that we don't do well yet. At least we recognize that we need to do the training. But one of the things I've just noticed in my experience is you get some of those guys, like you get like these former sapper guys or special ops guys, and they're gung ho, and they're in, and they were once green suiters and now they're cops, and that's great. And they're direct to threat, and they're like, we need the firemen, let's go, firemen. You're like, whoa, like let's talk about this. Like, hi, I'm Dave. What's your name? Let's get there. So it's just like I said before, the whole crawl, walk, run thing. Making those introductions all starts with a handshake and a smile, like you say. Going over the steps, going over what the expectations of the fire department should be, what the expectations of the EMTs, whatever, what the expectations of the police force is, how incident command should become a unified command, how that all works, what comms are going to be going on. Then start to go through the steps of how triage works, why it's important to set up a CCP, why it's important to clear rooms, why it's important to have PPE, why it's important to set up a casualty collection point, where that should be. Then do your drill. And then after you've done that, do your after action, but then change the drill up. Add a different type of setting, add a different type of scenario. These are the things that we just need to continue to get better at. I don't want to say we're doing it wrong, because at least we're doing it. It's just we need to get better at it. Does that make sense?
It does, and what you say makes perfect sense. And changing the setting, changing pieces on the board. Maybe your resource package changes. Maybe you have, a working fire in your district somewhere, and then this event kicks off, so your resource package changes. That's real. Perhaps you have distractionary events that draw resources to a particular area in order to delay response for what the aggressor is doing. That's happened. There's a lot of circumstances where outside of active shooter, you're dealing with, a barricaded subject and there's a fire associated with it. And at that time, they're on the scene. You're trying to figure out how we're going to put water on the fire while maintaining cover and being able to return aggression should the barricaded subject decide to, throw rounds or whatever have you. And that's probably not the best place to do that. I mean, people say that all the time. The time to try to figure out your plan is not on the emergency scene, but it happens. And recognizing that it happens and preparing and training for that type of event where you do have to figure it out on the fly, there's nothing wrong with that. That's a decent way to move forward. I think there's a couple of points that are being missed, forgotten, not highlighted. First and foremost, we stop the killing, we stop the dying, we rapidly transport, and then we initiate recovery. That you can repeat that all day long. That's well understood. It used to be stop the killing, stop the dying, initiate recovery. Then we added rapidly transport. It's hugely important. A lot of EMS agencies don't have the resource package to transport double-digit patients to a trauma center in an intelligent amount of time. So you're going to have to use unconventional means of transportation. That's fine. Accept that. We can do that on the fly too. How do you maintain service delivery? Your department, regardless of what comes before that term department, whether it be fire, police, emergency medical, doesn't matter. More often than not, the people who represent those departments are members of their own community, and they're responding within their own community. So 75% of the fire service is volunteer. You have an active shooter and you respond to this event. And, take yourself, God forbid, Sandy Hook, if that is repeated. Columbine, if it's repeated. One really needs to ask themselves, how do you maintain service delivery? Yes, during your event, that's important. That's a thing to train to. It's not collapse everything on the event. It's collapse a resource package that's intelligent, that's based on the information and what you have there to deal with the event. But then where are you going to get your backfill resource to maintain your service delivery? And it may not be immediate. Larger footprints, they already have this in place. It automatically happens. You just start station move ups, things like that. But smaller communities may not. Military installations, it's a prime example. If you lost your fire department, if you guys went to an event that was an active shooter and it was horrific, if you're not thinking these guys can't get on the truck tomorrow, or hey, you just drugged 16 bodies out of a building, it was horrific and horrible, and we have a whole bunch of dead and horribly injured people. Some of them, maybe it's a heavy pediatric amount of people, pediatric patients. What expectation is there that member is going to finish that tour? That they're going to drag those bodies, they're going to do their stuff, and they're going to go over and wash their hands and clean up and whatever, and get back on the truck and wait for the fire alarm activation or the fire, the car fire, or whatever the next call is. If you think that is something that they can do or even ought to do, that's a problem. So how do we train to that? Not just in the immediate, but the long term, because you are guaranteed, you can hang your hat on it, you're going to lose people. You're going to lose people from this event. Their career is over. They're done. They are never stepping on the truck again. And it could be the 20-something with 5 years or less on the job, and it could be the person who is retirement eligible but wanted to stick it out further. You are going to lose people from this event. It is going to be so much that they just can't do it. They cannot get back on the truck. How do you train for that? How do you prepare for that?
I mean, it's not an easy task. It's an interesting question. It's a great question. One thing is, so part of the same thing with the crawl, walk, run methodology. That same token is when you run a drill, you're doing it local to your agency, local to your local police and fire department, right? But that's when I say when we grow in these drills, like another thing is we then need to start communicating with our mutual aid partners because these people are coming, especially if we call a MassCal or something like that, and how much buzz that this has generated. How much buzz that this has generated as far as popularity. I don't mean to say it like that. It's just it's reality. It's the best way to describe it.
No,
Yeah. People are going to hear this. These buffs are going to hear this, and they're going to come responding in, even if they weren't called in, and that's okay, because everybody wants to help. But like I said, though, I mean, one of the things we need to do is we need to once we're training with our local agency, then we need to expand and train with our mutual aid partners and the outside resources that would certainly 100% be coming into this. Another thing to what you had said is the mental health training piece of it. The training for management, for leadership on the what do you call it? On the preparation or procedures on how to run a recall, because inevitably people are going to be checked out after something like this, not just physically taxed, but mentally, just they're crushed. And even if it didn't hit them yet, it's gonna. So best odds is to just, treat it like they were all contaminated. And I don't mean that negatively. I'm saying like you're not going to let them back in the firehouse if they've all been exposed to some kind of, contamination. So we'd have to run a recall that way, right? So we need to make sure that we can get, resources available to us, whether you're in a career department and you brought in, overtime, or you were able to bring in another department to mine your store and run a crew for you. But like a secondary search, a fresh set of eyes on that, fresh new crew to come in there and finish the rest of the night is at the end of the day, we still got to be readily available to answer emergencies. And these guys mentally are not going to be readily available. I don't care how tough you are. And then physically, it's going to kick your ass. You're dealing with all this shit. So that's going to suck. So, you got that going against you. So I think that training on introducing resources on how to do better mental health, on how we can help these people go through those stages of grief that they're going to go through. That's where we fail too. We always bring in some quack. Nobody talks to us better than us. You know what I mean? So like, it's like
bran muffins and orange juice, brother. Bran muffins.
Right.
Every critical incident is just debrief. Bran muffins and orange juice. Right. We can't have anything fattening. No donuts. No coffee. It's got to be health food. Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, you just turned me off. I'm done.
Exactly.
If I can't have Dunkin' Donuts and a coffee, I'm out.
Right. Yeah. I mean, come on. Yeah, exactly. That's just, we got to do a better job at that. We got to do a better job at the type of people that we have that are supposed to be helping talk to our people about this mental stuff that they're going to deal with. We got to do a better job at communicating and then working with and training with our mutual aid partners, because they're coming. And we got to do a better job at succession planning. What happens after the call? We still have to get on the truck. These guys aren't going to be able to get on the truck. What are we doing then? And that comes through training also. You prepare for this stuff. You put plans in place. You run that procedure of, even if it's just training your leadership of like, hey, this shit happened. What are we going to do? Here's how you run the list of trying to get people to come back. Or here's the readily available mutual aid partners that didn't respond to the call that'll have a fresh crew to mind our store to get us through the night. You have to come up with that succession planning too, so there's a lot at play there. All that stuff you said, it just got my wheels turning. It's like, I'm not prepared. And I pride myself on like being pretty, forward thinking, 30,000 foot view kind of person. But even I'm like, we don't have that stuff in place right now. So it was great that you brought it up, because I don't even think that I'm ready for that, or my agency is. I'm gonna now.
I think you look at it from, enacting, if your state has it, the state mutual aid plan, where, a lot of times that's enacted, God forbid somebody has a line of duty death, they enacted state mutual aid plan, reach out to departments. Hey, can you cover this department's house from the point of death all the way up to funeral and maybe a little bit extra. It's that. It's reaching out for that because your coverage may be for a minute. It may be, a week, 2 weeks,
Month.
much longer. If your footprint is fenced, like ours is in a military installation environment, we have certain restrictions to access to things. So maybe you need another military fire department. Beyond just fire, there's EMS, there's law enforcement. You may have to reach out to a military installation 100 miles away and say, I need you to send me an ambulance crew and send them with the preparation to be here for 72 hours or something to that effect, not because they're going to respond to the event, but because they're going to be there so that those that did can take a knee for a period of time. And I don't think, I agree that this is a command and control thing. This is a chief level strategic planning type thing. But I feel like we're not covering it. We're doing the training, we're doing the drills, we're doing the exercises, but as soon as the last patient is transported, we're done. For the cops that were there, if you engaged, if you threw rounds, if you fired your weapon, you're done. You're done. As soon as the exigent phase is over, you're done. You're going to be talking to investigators. Your weapon is going to have to be brought into evidence because of ballistics. You're done. You're out of everything. Because now, if following most people's policies, you're at a minimum, you're on administrative leave. So you're not even allowed to ride the road anymore. And who knows how long that'll be. And when you start doing different jurisdictional things, then it gets, now you're super wonky. Like, did we have an SRT team or a SWAT team come from 2 counties over, and they're the ones that put the bad guy down? Well, by statute, county to county, if you're touching and neighboring each other, yeah, we're good to go. When you're not, okay, now we're entering into a different legal realm of what was your authority to be there? Mutual aid. Now it gets crazy complex. What about that? What about dealing with that aspect? And I'd be remiss not to bring it up. Outside of the fire service, the infrastructure piece. So Washington Navy Yard. Washington Navy Yard had thousands of employees in the building that was where the shooting occurred. They shifted those workers after the event over to other buildings within the installation to be able to do their work. That building was closed, ordered up, shut down, locked down, 18 months. 18 months. That's how long it took to do the investigations and deal with the other stuff. Fort Hood, 7 years. 7 years that NPF facility was closed. 5 of which was related to the trial and all of that. An extra 2 years because they weren't really sure what they were going to do with it. But 7 years. Are you prepared to lose whatever is in your infrastructure for that amount of time? So if you have an incident occur City Hall, on a military installation headquarters, what are you going to do if you lose that building and you're losing it for years? Because that's what it is. You're losing it for years. As long as there is a trial, that building is going to be locked down, unusable throughout the length of the trial. How do you prepare for that? how do you train people, leadership, to plan for that if it's not on paper? Number one. Number two, if it is on paper, how do you exercise that in an intelligent way? And it's kind of a rhetorical question because it's kind of a brainstorming thing, but your opinion, like, how would you go about trying to deal with that?
So exactly like you just said, it's not rhetorical because there's merit to the fact that you're asking a question. So that my answer to that is what you just said. It's actually worked out that you said brainstorming. So like, you
Just mic him up. Just
right.
Mic him up, bring him around the corner. We'll ask him a couple of questions.
Right. We're gonna put him on the spot here in a second. He wants to be funny.
If you'll turn the thing orange, if he can go with green, we can call him Gumby.
Right.
And then I'm dating myself even further.
No, but like you said before about brainstorming, right? So we need to, how we get there. The first step would be to have this conversation, and not you and I, everybody. So for the listener, for the viewer, I would say that you need to have this conversation. You need to have this conversation with yourself and your team, and then maybe broaden it with your local agencies that would be responding to this, and then further. Because the truth is, I'm not knocking anybody. I don't know every fire department. I'm sure there's some that they know, or they got a plan, or they got it figured out. I'm not prepared. We're not prepared. I mean, we're not. I'm not ashamed to admit it. It's just like, this is like eye opening for me. Like, this stuff that you're saying is like, for me, like, I'm just like, we're not ready. I mean, you have to be ready because we got a ton of shit going on, and it can happen. I can't prevent it from happening. It can happen. In the economy today, in the workforce today, contrary to what you might hear on some local networks telling you that everything's golden and great, we risk ourselves to having disgruntled people going postal. Remember that term?
Oh yeah.
So this is like, we're not ready, and it can happen. We live in a climate where people are more on edge than they ever were before because somebody told them that they're supposed to be offended. So, we're not prepared. We're not ready. It scares the shit out of me. I hate that I don't have like a definitive answer because, like, as you're saying all this, I'm just sitting here like, Christ, like, I'm not ready. My guys aren't ready. Like, what do we do? What are we going to do? How does the plan even start? I will just say that my answer would be in this moment, as it has been for everything, is it starts with the brainstorming piece. It starts with an idea. And then I'll tell you, like, if you don't know how to get somewhere, and I don't mean to be cliche because we were going to get here anyway, so what better opportunity than now? If you don't have the answer or you don't know how to get there, dude, network with people. I mean, like, my career has been based off of the people I know, not what I know. I've been fortunate and blessed to have some great cadre of influencers, inspirations, mentors, coaches, and subject matter experts. And they have all given me nuggets to help me be able to be given a better advantage than going into a blind. So I can tell you with no arrogance, no narcissism, just pure fact, that my ability and willingness to network with people has been a successful thing. It has not been something that I'm like, well, wish I would have gone on that on my own. Like, all of my successes has been off of someone helping me get there. And I can tell you in this subject that we're talking about, reach out to people. I mean, just we got listeners listening in. We got, people tuning in, people live streaming it, watching it. not to volunteer you, because I know you're busy too, but you're a tool, you're a resource that people can pull from. And not only that, but people who that you can then put them in a direction to.
I know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy, exactly. Right.
Jersey.
Right. I mean, but it's such a true term, I know a guy, it just, it's all relevant, because it's like, I'm sorry, Hammy. It's just, as you're saying this, I'm like, I pride myself on like being pretty proactive, and I'm like, we're not ready. Like, we're not, I think my guys do a pretty damn good job when they need to, but nonetheless, we're not ready. I don't have the answer to that. I'm like, what would I do? Right now, I'm the interim chief. What do I do? I'm like, so yeah, that would be my challenge to the listener is just accept the humility that I'm accepting right now, and just be like, yeah, I don't know, but I better figure that shit out.
It's arrogant to say that you're ready. Period.
Yeah. It's naive. It's just foolish.
Yeah. Line of duty death. You deal with a line of duty death. Right. Oh, we're ready. We're prepared.
Right. Now
got the bunting. We got the bunting in the closet. I got the manila sealed folder that the member made. Sealed.
We got a big flag. We're hanging off the truck. We're ready.
Yep. I got the IAFF funeral guide, the several hundred pages. I know exactly what to hand the coroner for the autopsy in order for it to be kosher. I know how to reach out to NFFF and give the notification.
Right.
And the public safety officer death benefit packet to give to the family to say, hey, fill this out. I'm ready.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
Yeah.
No, you're not. Because anytime you add emotion to something that you haven't gone through, you're not ready.
Mm-hmm. You go through your own personal stages of grief, let alone the agencies, let alone the publics, let alone everybody else. There's interpersonal stages of grief that you would go through in this aspect. How do you mitigate that? How do you navigate through it?
And we're a representative of our community. No matter what fire department you're in, it doesn't matter. You are a representative of your community. That's every fire department. There, especially your roots in the tri-state area. Fire departments were a social gathering. It was like, hey, it's a place for us to get out of the house and get together and have cigars and a drink. And occasionally, if there's a fire, we're going to go deal with that. That's Long Island. That's my understanding from relatives in the 50s and 60s. That's what it was. It was a social. It's kind of like a non-for-profit organization. We hang out, we do stuff.
Right.
Yeah. And if there's a fire, well, we're there. Professional, we do our job, we put it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're representative of your community. So you have an effect. You are affected. It's possible, it's actually likely that you're going to have somebody within your organization who has a loved one that was attached to that event and has either been injured or is not coming home.
Mm-hmm.
So they have that whole other level of grief to deal with on top of whatever they dealt with the response.
Right.
Captain O'Shaughnessy at the Route 91 Harvest Festival shooting, he had a guy on the back of his truck whose daughter was calling on a phone because she was at the concert and she got shot. And they were the first unit there and had thousands of people swarming their truck in less than a minute of the first shots being fired. So, like, in my brain, how to manage that.
Yeah, how do you prepare for something like that? You don't think that that's going to happen.
On your first shift as a captain.
Yeah.
First cut loose off of the task book, done, signed off, blessed. That's your first shift.
Right.
It's crazy, but again, I think we hyper focused on task level stuff. I think we hyper focused in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
On the tactical level stuff.
Yeah.
And it's important.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not that it wasn't important.
But we hyper-focused.
Right, it almost became, we created a tunnel vision out of it now.
Right.
Right, I get where you're going here.
Like Hartford consensus. If you didn't have a tourniquet, you didn't carry a tourniquet, you're a potato head. Fine. What active shooter victim is being saved by a tourniquet that's been applied by fire and EMS? By the time that patient is bleeding out that needs a tourniquet, by the time they have bled out, you haven't been dispatched yet.
Yeah.
The tourniquet is for the layperson. The tourniquet is for the person who's next to you when you get shot.
Right.
But we hyper-focused on stop the bleed.
Yeah.
By the time we get into the scene, if the bleeding hasn't been stopped, you're a black tag.
Yeah, it's that's
what it is.
Listen, no matter how hard this sounds, that's it. It's shitty. That's the truth.
So how do we? It's the shooting forward. So RTF, everything's RTF. I will be the first publicly say it, which I've said it before, but we'll say it again. RTF is a broken concept that for a mass majority of the world can't carry out RTF in the manner in which it is described, defined, and intended. You just can't. The idea that you have a specialized, trained crew that is equipped and prepared and in the right place when the tones go off, that can get to the scene, link up with their law enforcement counterparts who they've trained with. It's not somebody from a neighboring jurisdiction. It's not somebody you've never met before. You've trained with them, and formulate your team and go into the environment is crazy. It's crazy. FDNY, it's not a secret. They have RTF. They pushed an RTF concept, and they had the subway shooting. Wasn't RTF that rescued all those people in the subway shooting. It was the first arriving companies in that battalion. RTF works if it's a pre-staged special event. The president's coming, you got a 4th of July ceremony, you got a big concert, you got a political gathering, whatever, protest. RTF is, pre-stage, it works. Austin does it fabulously on 6th Street in that area of the city. They have teams that are set up with little Polarises that they can zip in, scoop up, zip out. Awesome concept. That does not work at the high school at 11 o'clock in the morning under normal business. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. It's broken. It does not work.
So one of the issues that I just got to touch on is that everything you're saying is 100% right. So I don't mean to lay on this crutch, but I'll just throw it out there. So while I 100% agree with you, we're not equipped to go in early. They're not putting the finances into the proper PPE for us to go in early. So then you run that issue of the safety aspect from the incident command side. I'd sooner just stand up a rescue task force because at least I know they're not getting deployed until it's warm. And that's not always the answer. It's an answer, and it can work, but it's not always the answer. And that's the issue. So in my experience, that's my political way of saying that. In my experience, I have heard on, Like, I know a guy who experienced maybe not having plates in their ballistic vests in date, asking for a friend. So where I'm going with that is like, in the realm of like not having those things financed, or budgeted for, even though you express the concern or the risk, again, asking for a friend. You know, that's where it's like, okay, well, all that we can do is rescue task force. We're limited now to only being able to do that. And while I'm not against rescue task force, because we train on it, and I understand the need for it, and I respect the need for it, and I even appreciate the need for it. I'll advocate for it. I also think that if we were properly equipped, it would be easier to justify the safety concerns, or at least answer the safety concerns of getting our people in quicker than they need to start offering the care that they need to. And if we're not going to do that, then we need to have the police force readily available to us to train them on how to properly offer the care. And I'm not knocking the cops, because we got the same damn problem with our firemen. Everybody wants to go in and crawl the hallway or stretch a hose. Well, I need a RIT team. And I know you don't want to yard bird it or be a hefty guy, but guess what? You're going to be out in the yard right now because I need RIT. I need somebody to be on the roof. I need a backup crew. I need somebody to be filling bottles. I mean, there's always shit assignments. And that's the thing, is like, a lot of these cops have the same mentality that we do, is everybody wants to fight the fire. Everybody wants to get the active shooter. Well, I need someone to pull back so we can reassign them to doing this other stuff. It's tough.
It's that mirror sticker. The mirror sticker that says, objects appear larger than they are, or whatever. It's the mirror sticker that says objects in this mirror are second due.
Right.
That means you're outside team. That means you're RIT. That means you're
You know what? It's your turn.
Exactly.
And you'll get another turn.
Yeah, exactly. We'll know how to do it. It just is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, dropped a couple bombs. There's more, but we won't kill that too much. The point is to be forward thinking. It's engagement. And as I think, how would this go? It's based on studying and reading and seeing how other things occurred. You got to be a student. You have to always be training, and that doesn't mean being in the classroom, being on the drill ground. That's having an attitude of, what can I learn today? And if it's for you, it's for you. If that means you read, you read. If that means you go to the drill ground, go to the drill ground. But it's that thirst for knowledge, that thirst for reading and more. And when I think about the book, I think that's hammered home pretty hard. And I think that if you read it, you should come away pretty energized and invigorated into training conceptually, and what to do, how to look hard and take a real honest, unobjected look, hanging up your ego, hanging up we're the best, hanging up all of those things that block us from being excellent. I hate to say that because it sounds very cheaply, but being excellent. The book steers you in that way into, where are we? Where do I want to be? How can I get there? And why do I want to be there in the first place? And I think it's awesome that you took the time, energy, and effort to do that. I was honored to contribute to your book. Beyond honored.
I was honored to have you.
And one of these days I might actually do a book.
I hope you do.
But the amount of work that it took to contribute, I can't imagine.
It was 2 years just to write the damn thing, plus doing my master's. This is awful.
Yeah, Chrissy is a saint.
Yeah.
Chrissy's a saint.
Yeah.
And being a Puerto Rican married to an Irishman, I'm surprised you're alive. I know you have puncture wounds somewhere. I know you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're just going to leave that there. But
Right.
I also think, obviously, the book is themed for the fire service for sure. I think it's all services.
Right. I'm glad you said that.
Services, and I think it is. If your job is to train an adult, whether that be at the collegiate level, whether that be at the occupational level professionally, there is so much that you can glean from the book and incorporate. It's awesome. Your thoughts on the application of the book outside of the fire service? Because the fire service, I mean, we beat the hell out of that. I know that you beat the hell out of that elsewhere. But since we're a multi-disciplined show for the most part, how can the cop use your book?
Right. So I didn't overly elaborate because I didn't want to get caught down rabbit holes. So there was, just through there's a process when you do a book. So there's peer review, and then there's your friends review, and your friends are going to give you honest stuff. Some friends will give you, hey bud, looks good, but then others, you'll ask them what they think, and like Frank Ritchie gave me honest, hard truth on stuff, but that's what you want. So where there were times where I went down rabbit holes and overly elaborated on like a subject like this, like active shooter, we tightened it up a little bit, but we touch on it so that it sparks the interest. The idea behind the book is, sure, okay, my background is fire and emergency services. That's the thing that I don't know if I'm an SME on, but that's the thing that I'm the most experienced in, right? So while there's a focus for that, while there's a niche for that, while the front cover is a picture of me at West Point in fire gear while we're doing a live burn, it's a fire service book, but it's a book about how to be an educator nonetheless, how to handle things nonetheless, type of shit you go through, how to plan through it, how to navigate through it, how to coach people, how to mentor people, how to be an inspiration, how to develop others, how to want to develop others. There's breakout scenarios in there. There's rhetoricals. There's a lot of rhetorical questions in there. And I had to explain that to people. It's on purpose. So like I have some hypotheticals and then some real life experiences that I put in these test your understandings or these practical practical situation breakouts that I have throughout the book. Some of them may seem a little goofy. Some of them have been washed for political reasons so that I didn't incriminate either myself or the scenario. But nonetheless, I felt it was important because there was growth in what I did. So as you read through it, there's going to be these breakouts of this test your understanding. And it may seem rhetorical, like, well, yeah, duh. Well, yeah, but I want you to have that response, because if you didn't have the response of, well, yeah, obviously it's this, that's the problem. So then as you read on, you'll see like, no, idiot, you're wrong. This is actually how you should handle this, but it's like, it's called The Training Officer because the book is about that. We talk about a lot of stuff training officers encounter and how they develop their people. My experience, no matter what positions I hold or any more that I grow in the fire service, the most important position in the fire service and in life is that of the training officer / teacher / instructor / coach. These people are the most influential, and the very nature of their job is development. They develop people. They develop us. And there's 10 chapters, and through all the 10 chapters, the biggest takeaway that I want anybody to get, whether you like things, disagree with them, didn't understand what I was saying, give a shit. It's not that expensive. Buy it anyway. There's a couple, even if you took 4 nuggets, it was worth it. Nonetheless, the driving force was to basically just for me to share some of my experiences and some of my friends' experiences of people that I know that do training with you. So you understood what it was like to not to play on words, but, do you have what it takes? It's a question that I had to ask myself. Do I have what it takes to do this? Because it's a lot more than what I thought it would be. And it's not just narrowed to the fire service training officer, though most of it is that, because that's my experience. Most of it is wrapped and sexed up in that, because that's my experience. It's applicable to almost any type of educator. There's pieces in there for anybody to do any type of developmental education for people. I believe that. I'm not saying it because I wrote it. It's just that's how I wrote it, and that's what I was driving at. I had teachers and guidance counselors review certain sections because I wanted them to tell me, like, would this be applicable to something you do? And they're like, yeah, wow, that's so cool. You guys do that in the fire service? I'm like, yeah, that's the misconception, is people just think we drag hose. We're in the business of people. When we develop those,
we do algebra. We do algebra.
Right.
I want to find my algebra teacher
and say you were right.
I want to shake the shit out of my algebra teacher because you were right, and it pisses me off.
Right.
Because
there's nothing you're going to do in life where you're not going to have to know this. Math is in everything in life. I'm going to be a fireman, bro. I don't need to know this shit. Bullshit. We were wrong.
I was going to be a knuckle dragging hose. Yeah. Which is why I gravitated towards the truck. Kilonewtons, whatever. Still math.
Yeah.
Now, I think it's great, dude. My hat is off to you, to the efforts that it takes to write a book.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's not easy.
I think a lot of people are gonna get a lot out of it, and you change the fire service.
I hope. I appreciate that.
You change the fire service, and you're changing individuals.
Yeah, improving them
in a positive way.
Right. That's why I just said improving. Like I don't look to, and I appreciate what you're saying. I know it's not what you meant. I don't look to change anyone or anything. You're like, not to quote Michael Jackson, like he was some friggin' philosopher, but like, the Man in the Mirror song, I'm going to make a change for once in my life. It starts in the mirror, right? So like, if I'm going to change anybody, I got to worry about me, but I would like to serve in the position or the capacity of being in some form position of influence to help improve how people do things, their understanding of their environment, and what it really means to do what we're supposed to do in the fire service. Like, especially in the training realm, like you don't take this because you couldn't hack it on the truck. You don't take this because it's a segue to making the promotion or putting on a white shirt or extra bugles. You take it because you truly want to help make your people and your place better. And that's, that's what I try to do. I'm not trying to be some friggin', overzealous, cliche yuckle buck and say this kind of stuff. I sincerely, anybody that knows me knows I mean that shit when I say it. I know I could be a jerk off with certain things, but the one thing that you'll never take away from me is I'm very passionate about developing people and trying to help people make a better version of themselves and thus make what we do better.
Yeah, and you're not a jerk off. This is a PG-oriented cast.
You never watched my show because I curse in my show.
You're a fugazi. That's what it is.
Once I heard of Villo cursing in Duffy's show, with him and Duffy. I'm not blaming Anthony. Anthony, I'm not blaming you. I love you. But I was always tiptoe because I'm a Jersey guy and it slips out. Like the F word is like, for us, And I'm listening. I wasn't even listening. Duffy and Anthony had me on their show one time, and Anthony's dropping F. And I'm like, oh, bro, this is carte blanche. Like, I'm doing it too. Like, what am I tippy-toeing for?
Hey, if you're from the tri-state area, English is your second language and profanity is your
right. Yeah, you're right.
And Villo, he has to cuss.
Right. I don't think he'd be able to talk about it.
He's a consigliere. The way they analyze this, he's a consigliere to the Connecticut Godfathers.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Norwood, Duffy, Ricci. The list is long.
Right.
But having said all that, to the production team that's going to edit this, so we need a definition of fugazi, and we're going to need a link to Michael Jackson, Man in the Mirror, because anybody who's in their 20s is like,
right.
What?
God rest his soul, but Bobby would hear me say that, and he'd be like, Dave, why are we quoting Michael Jackson?
I mean, I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people at Man in the Mirror. What song is that? I guarantee you, I got people on the job that have never seen the movie Heat.
Oof.
Exactly right.
That's a rough time.
Yep. Done. Enough said. So, anyways, we hit the magic hour mark, which actually we went over, but with you and I, it's not a shock.
Right. That's actually short for us.
Yeah, it's pretty normal. I appreciate you coming on. I think we met the intent. The intent was to set the stage to go, oh, shit.
Right. And that's what happened to me.
Think of it from a training standpoint. Okay.
Yeah.
We need to make a change. All change starts in training. Mm-hmm. All change starts in training. How do we train to that? And even if you are doing your statewide mutual aid exercise, where you're going to call all the fire departments and say, we have X problem. What resources can you send? How long can they be there? And what time can they arrive? Make it an active shooter call. Make it an active shooter call. And instead of making it 72 hours, make it 7 to 10 weeks. Because it might be what you're looking at. It really might. And how do you wipe out an entire shift of your department? Because that very well could be what you're looking at. Again, I love you. Thank you so much for coming on. And I will leave you with the last word. Let us know where to get the book, when it's coming out, and when we push this out, we'll add a link so that people can get the book.
Maybe.
My show, we're adding a link.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I appreciate that. So one, I love you too. You know that. So just real quick, I'm not going to take too much time. I'll just say this. I talk about networking all the time. My successes in what I'm doing with fire engineering and FDIC is because Hamilton introduced me to people and vouched for me. And I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that. And that's important. And that's why I tell people all the time, like, I am living proof that networking works. No, it was a lot of good stuff. It was a lot of eye-opening stuff for me. And I say that and with no arrogance. It's just if I had this epiphany or this flooring moment, like, I expect the people that were listening to this to feel the same way. Like, are we really prepared? Are you really prepared? Are you ready for this shit that he was just saying? Because I'm not. And it was eye-opening. So I appreciate that. The book is available now. We're doing a holiday sale until the new year. Where it's at a discounted price. I think it's like $5 less or $10 less than normal. I don't know. It's on Amazon, but it's also on firefighterbookclub.com. We're hoping that FE would pick it up. We've been in the works of talking to them about reselling, so it could be available to them. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Maybe now that I plugged it on here, maybe they'll be enticed. Who knows? But yeah. But nonetheless, had a lot of great contributors. To include you in there, a lot of big name authors, people that have been doing this a long time, like Champ. Unlike the magazine, I put Champ in the front. He said, "Oh, you should put me in the back, like a back cover." I wanted him right in the front. I want everybody to hear from Champ because he's been a god for me since I started the fire service because he's originally a Jersey boy. So I put Champ right up front where he deserves to be. And we got a lot of great people in there. Frank Ritchie wrote the foreword. Frank Viscuso ends it on the last chapter of his contribution. Uncle Larry's in there. PJ Norwood's in there. Jim Moss. We got Mike Scotto's in there. Steve Prisbrowski, and then Connor Miller, who's a lieutenant up at West Point, is just one of the most unknown, smartest dudes I ever worked with in the firehouse, fully capable. And then my buddy Scott Little, who's a fire chief down here in PA at Manheim Township. I got a lot of great people that contributed to that book and helped out bring it to where it needs to be. Oh, and Tommy Merrill. Sorry, Tommy, the volunteer, the professional volunteer, because we needed to talk about training volunteers, and who better to know that than Tommy Merrill, you know? So, so anyway, the book's available now. It's discounted now through the new year, so I suggest you buy it now. If you buy it on firefighterbookclub.com, literally spelled that way, firefighterbookclub.com, it's discounted, I think, at $35. And then on Amazon, it's at like $38. If you got Prime, it's free shipping, and they're promising that it'll be there before Christmas off of Amazon right now. And it's called The Training Officer, Do You Have What It Takes? And it's by me, David McGlynn. But no, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. It's just, you know, I love you, brother. I appreciate doing this kind of stuff. I almost never say no. I have my own show, and I'm always busy as shit. And whenever somebody asks me to do it, I do it. Mark knows that. I've been on other people's show on top of mine. Mark and I have gotten real close over the past 6 months. But no, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. And happy holidays to everybody. Happy Hanukkah. We're finishing that up. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. I got my show coming up, I think, a couple days after you, and I have that format where I talk about, anybody that knows me knows I'm a Beatles fan. And, you know, John Lennon has the War Is Over song. He says, "So this is Christmas, and what have you done?" Another year over, and a new one's just begun. So I'll end it with that. Is we're approaching the end of the year. Are you satisfied with how the year went? And if you're not, look back and see how much you've grown and how much your organization has grown since last year. I'll leave you with that. Thank you.
That's leave it to you to leave it on a trick. Are you satisfied with the year? The answer has to be no. I mean, it
Listen,
better
I'm
be
a
no.
Batman fan, bro. I got to leave a riddle, you know?
I mean, all right. Well, listen. I got one swallow left of Tullamore Dew. So
Yeah.
that means we're done. God bless. Be safe. Have a happy holiday. Take care of one another, and we'll see you next time.
The Fire Store, equipping protectors with passion. Every decision the Fire Store makes as a company is about its customers. As the holiday season has quickly approached, explore a wide selection of unique and practical gifts at the Fire Store's Gift Center. Find the perfect presents for firefighters, EMTs, and first responders today. The Fire Store's goal is to get you the gear you need when you need it at prices you can afford. Visit thefirestore.com for everything but the truck and shop its family of brands including Streamlight, MSA, Lion, Fleer, and more.
Breathing in diesel exhaust fumes is like walking into a fire without a mask. Over time, those toxins lead to cancer. Protect yourself with MagneGrip, the easiest, most reliable exhaust removal system that features a true 100% seal to eliminate diesel exhaust fumes. To get free grant assistance, visit MagneGrip.com.